Hi everyone, it is David Ault, and I'm so delighted and honored that you are taking a little bit of your personal time to spend it here with me in the gathering. I came across an old story by metaphysician Emmett Fox this week. He was talking about how when he first came to America, he was in a big city, he was hungry, and he walked into a restaurant and he sat down. And he looked around and he saw all these people eating delicious food, and that made him more hungry and in anticipation of getting served. And he waited and he continued to wait, and no one came. And his waiting turned into agitation, and the agitation forced him to sort of look around at his surroundings because all kinds of mind trips were going on in his head. And he saw that people who were walking in, just like he had, were not going directly and sitting down at the table, that they were getting in some kind of a line, and that something was happening in that line, and that line had something to do with the food. And thus was born the idea, the conception of a cafeteria, the reality of a cafeteria in Emmett Fox's mind. Where he came from, that was not a reality, so this was a new paradigm for him. And he would tell that story a lot, and he would tell it from the framework of don't be a person who kind of sits and waits. And in your sitting and waiting, you can be as agitated as you want to be, but it's not going to change the circumstance until you get up and become involved in your own manifestation and your own growth. And I smiled at the recollection of the story. I reflected on probably I used that several times over the course of my career. And then I smiled again, because as I was reading it, I began to get a sense of my own evolution. And that story previously was very one-dimensional. It was don't do this, do this, in terms of the dynamic. And then when I read the story this week, I realized that my reference point was different. My observations were different, where I saw that both activities of Emmett Fox were actually very beneficial. The part that came in and sat down, the only tweak perhaps in that behavior would be that represents the grounding of our beingness, of getting in alignment with what it is that we're saying that we're wanting. So let's say that you're hungry, but it's a hunger for a desire for something in your life. It's invaluable to first sit and to get in touch with that hunger and to honor it, to acknowledge it, and to begin to allow yourself to lean into that desire in a way that takes control off of it, our control off of it, that takes perhaps imitation off of it, like, well, this is the way that this person did it, so I have to do it that way. And we lean into this sort of inevitable hunger that we all have as human beings, and we say, I give you me. I give you all of me, the investment, the instrument of me to this hunger, and I ask that I be directed in the highest and best application, journey, relationship that this hunger has for me. I lean into the mystery, the destiny of how I am to participate in this, and I am forever teachable with that. And then I get up, and then I get into the activity of doing the thing. Always, always being flexible and fluid. Always checking the return of my need to control those things. And so as I was reading the story and noticing that, oh, isn't it interesting sometimes in the telling of this, we try to make one behavior wrong and another behavior right, when all behavior is valid. And so if I were to teach that story today, I would reference that, just as I'm doing right now, in that we are constantly going beyond what we think is our final destination, whether that be as teacher or parent or as a creative, as in our careers, as parents, as educators, as any form of relationship, that there is always something, and here's the word, beyond what we have experienced. And so in order to be available to what is beyond, we have to continue to check our control. Just as in Emmett Fox's story, if I am cemented in this idea of wanting to control everything, then I am possibly making one behavior wrong and one behavior right. Whereas when I look into what is beyond, I realize that what is being asked of me is tremendous fluidity, to always check in and question form, to always look at how my thinking might be rigid, always looking at my inertia, my conformity, and always being willing to bring that up for observation so that I can continue to dissolve my attachment to history. Whew. So that's easier said than done. And I also used to use an illustration, and I would call it, what is our Isaac? So I was raised in traditional Christian Sunday school types of learning, where we learned about Abraham and Isaac. And Isaac was the child bestowed to Abraham after a very long, desirous hunger for a child. And Abraham loved Isaac with all of his being, with all of his heart. And he is prompted, as the biblical story says, by God to now offer the very thing that he loves the most, to sacrifice that thing to God, to prove his love to God. I remember how savage that sounded as a child, but Abraham is tortured over this. God is asking him to give to him the very thing that he loves the most. And so, as the narrative tells us, that even in his agony, Abraham decides that he will be obedient to the request, and he takes the thing that he loves the most, and he lays Isaac on this sacrificial altar. And right in that moment, the angel comes and intervenes and says, God is pleased that you have shown your devotion and your dedication. The fruits of your labor, the seeds of your being will gather and multiply for generations upon generations to come, and all of your lineage will be blessed. And I would tell that story. And then I was looking at that as well this week and realizing, well, what's beyond that? And really what that story to me has evolved into is not some type of thing about being obedient to God, but it's an allegory, if you can get through the sacrificial savagery part and look at the meaning of the allegory, which is, Abraham, I know that you think that this is the pinnacle of love. But if you are willing to let go of your control and your harnessing and your protection over this thing that you're loving, if you're willing to let loose of that in a way that you're willing to share it, to give it back to this thing called God, then I will show you a love even beyond that. I will allow you to experience an expansion within something so indescribable that you will come to know a love far greater than what you know now. Even though the love that you know now is just breathtaking. And I started to see in both of these things, what is our Isaac? What is the thing that we love that we're not necessarily willing to sacrifice or to let go of? And that it is those things Whether it be the behavior of Emmett Fox, where we're kind of people that we just love for other people to figure it out first. We love for other people to make the mistakes so we don't have to because we're too afraid. So we love other people who are quote, quote, pioneers because they're the ones that are doing all the grunt work, and then we get the advantage of of reaping the fruits of their labor. When in point of fact, we are all designed to be pioneers. And so if I ask you, what is your Isaac? What is the thing that you love? If you love your safety, that says you don't have to exceed anything outside of your comfort zone, then what or how or when will you know what is beyond your comfort zone? If my Isaac is a love relationship, is a career that I am deeply invested in and feel fulfilled in, have I forgotten what infinite means? Have I not understood that the inevitability of change within this human experience is always beckoning me and drawing me to understand and to play in this arena of the beyond? So even though I may love something, am I willing to take that something and even sacrifice it for what might be beyond? So this is hard for that part of us that is the sentimentalist. This is hard for those of us who have been raised to believe that success equals some type of longevity measured by years. For example, if I'm in an institution that prides itself into having done certain things for the last 100 years, then that institution in some way is stale because it is not playing with the fluidity of what might be birthed from it if it was willing to let it go, to be sacrificed for what is beyond that. So you begin to see that when you give yourself into the hybrid nature of being and doing, when you allow yourself to first sit with the hunger and offer yourself to that hunger, the inevitability of your own evolution and growth, you offer yourself without clinging or designing or outlining or managing. You just say, use me. Then you start to see and experience a very heightened zigzag, if you will, where certainty and the rug of certainty always appears to be being pulled out, where worldviews dissolve more rapidly than perhaps they had before, or if they ever did. And it's because you are now comfortable with the energy of beyond. You are not afraid of what the beyond is, the mystery. You're open and available because there is a part now that has grown to understand that one of the most powerful things that we can do is to give ourselves to the mystery. To say, use me, not use me in a way that I want you to use me, but use me in the right and perfect design, the reason why my soul is here, my soul's purpose, if you will. To use me in a way for that purpose that is so free from clinging and attachment that I'm living in a sense of perpetual awe by how rapidly that expansion and that beauty meets me. So expansion and beauty then are not held for special occasion. It becomes a sort of a daily thing where I am just in the ever-increasing synchronicities of the divine. I'm aware that infinite intelligence is at play because I'm not trying to block the design of infinite intelligence. And so I go back to what that talk that I used to give years ago was called, What is our Isaac? What is your Isaac? Simply meaning, what is the thing that you are so enamored with and in love with that you are reticent to offer it to the energies of the beyond. And that's where you start. So for some of us, it's our story. My Isaac might be my wounding and my story. I so love my story because it gets me attention, because it's a part of the glue of the tribe that I'm currently in. That I don't want, who would I be if I had to give that up? Who would I be if I didn't identify with some type of former victimization, because that's what I have built my life around? If that's your Isaac, are you willing to put your Isaac on this sacrificial altar to let an angelic force come and say, thank you for doing this. We'll handle the rest. We'll now take you and bless you in your journey because now you have shown a willingness to be able to do that. What is your Isaac? What is your Isaac? Is it fear of the unknown? What is your Isaac? Is it a broken heart that never wants to be that vulnerable again? Are you willing to take that and to put that on the altar and to let it handhold you in both your being and your doing? Whew. So spend some time with that. In your journal, I find that pen and paper are really good to be able to be in the intimacy of consciousness as it wants to come through the art and the expression of the tangibility of writing. And to just write down the phrase, what are my Isaacs? What are the things that I love that seemingly seem weird that I love them, but am I willing to turn them over? Am I willing to turn over my security, my need for security, my living situation, my relationships, my career, my money, my health? Am I willing to turn all of that over? Those fears, those protections, those things that I have grown to create an identity around. Am I willing to lay those down and give myself, not half-heartedly, but wholeheartedly, to that which is the beyond? There's your exercise. There's your work for this week. Again, much love, much gratitude for you being here. Let me know how I can assist. God bless.